The interview. The fluorescent lights of Murphy's diner cast their harsh glow across the worn linoleum floor. Emma Carter balanced 3 plates on her left arm while pouring coffee with her right hand, her feet screaming in sneakers that had given up their cushioning months ago. She forced a smile for the customer who barely acknowledged her existence. 11:47 p.m. Still over an hour left on her shift. Her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. Another message from the hospital billing department. The numbers glowed mockingly on the screen. $47,000. The amount Victoria needed for her surgery kept growing with each passing day, a debt that swallowed Emma's hope like quicksand. Her younger sister, 19 years old, should have been worrying about college exams and weekend parties, not whether her heart would keep beating through the night. 6 months since the diagnosis of a rare heart condition. 6 months of Emma working herself to the bone, dropping out of her business degree program, taking every shift she could find. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. After her shift ended, Emma sat in her beat-up Honda in the diner's parking lot, laptop screen illuminating her exhausted face. She scrolled through job listings for the 100th time that week. Most required degrees she didn't have or experience she couldn't afford to gain. Her savings account mocked her. $312. Then she saw it. Wellington Industries was seeking an executive assistant. The salary made her heart race. More money than she had ever dreamed of earning. The position required someone detail-oriented, organized, and willing to work long hours. Emma had been doing exactly that for years, just not in an office setting. She clicked apply before doubt could stop her. Wellington Industries occupied the tallest building in the city, its glass facade reflecting the morning sun like a beacon. James Wellington, the company's founder and CEO, was something of a legend. At 32, he had built his empire from nothing, becoming one of the youngest billionaires in the country. Emma had read about him in magazines while waiting in hospital lobbies, fascinated by his story of rising from poverty to unimaginable wealth. She spent her last $20 on a professional outfit from a thrift store. The black blazer was slightly too big, but it looked respectable when paired with a white blouse and dark pants. She practiced her interview answers in the mirror, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. The Wellington Industries lobby was a temple of marble and steel. Emma felt completely out of place among the perfectly dressed professionals who moved through the space with purpose and authority. The receptionist, a woman with flawless makeup and an expensive suit, looked Emma up and down with barely concealed disdain. "Emma Carter for the executive assistant position," Emma said, her voice steadier than she felt. The woman checked her computer screen with exaggerated slowness. "Take the elevator to the 42nd floor. Ms. Rodriguez will see you." The elevator ride felt like ascending to another world. Each floor they passed represented a life Emma had never known, filled with opportunities she had never had. When the doors opened, she stepped into a realm of understated luxury. The floors were polished hardwood, the walls adorned with abstract art that probably cost more than Emma's annual income. Ms. Rodriguez was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes behind designer glasses. She led Emma to a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking view of the city. "Tell me about yourself," Ms. Rodriguez said, her tone warm despite the formal setting. Emma took a breath. "I'm currently working 3 jobs to pay for my sister's medical treatment. I dropped out of college, but I'm organized. I work harder than anyone you'll find, and I learn fast. I know I don't have the traditional qualifications, but I can do this job." Ms. Rodriguez studied her with an expression Emma couldn't read. "Your honesty is refreshing. Most candidates try to hide their desperation." "I can't afford to hide anything," Emma said. "My sister can't afford it." Something shifted in Ms. Rodriguez's eyes. "Wait here." She left Emma alone in the conference room. Minutes stretched like hours. Emma watched tiny cars move through the streets below, people living lives that seemed impossibly distant from her own reality. The door opened. A man walked in, and Emma's world tilted on its axis. James Wellington was taller than he appeared in photographs, his presence filling the room like a force of nature. Dark hair, sharp jawline, eyes the color of storm clouds. He wore his expensive suit like armor, but there was something in his face that seemed carved from old pain. He stopped in the doorway, his entire body going rigid. Emma felt it too, a jolt of recognition that made no sense. She had never met this man before. She was certain of it. But the way he was staring at her, like he had seen a ghost, made her heart hammer in her chest. "You?" he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It can't be." Emma stood, confusion flooding through her. "I'm sorry, I don't understand." James took a step closer, his eyes scanning her face with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "What's your full name?" "Emma Carter. Emma Louise Carter." Something shattered in his expression. He turned to Ms. Rodriguez, who had appeared behind him in the doorway. "Hire her," he said, his voice rough. "Whatever she's asking for, double it. She starts tomorrow." He walked out without another word, leaving Emma standing there with her mouth open, her mind reeling. Ms. Rodriguez smiled, but there was something sad in it. "Congratulations, Ms. Carter. It seems you've made quite an impression." Emma should have felt relief, triumph, hope. Instead, she felt like she had just stepped into something far more complicated than a job. She felt like she had just walked into her own unraveling. Fragments of memory. Emma's first day at Wellington Industries began at 6:09 a.m. The building was nearly empty, just security guards and a handful of early arrivals. Ms. Rodriguez had given her a stack of orientation materials and a security badge with her photo, but the real test would be working directly with James Wellington. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face in that conference room, the shock and pain that had flickered across his features like lightning. You. It can't be. What couldn't be? What had he seen in her face that had shaken him so completely? Her office was adjacent to his, separated by a glass wall and a heavy oak door. The space was elegant and efficient, with a desk that probably cost more than her car. She was arranging her sparse belongings when the door to James's office opened. He stood there in a charcoal suit, looking like he hadn't slept either. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his jaw was tight with tension. "Ms. Carter," he said formally, as if yesterday's reaction had never happened. "I have a meeting at 8. I need you to prepare the quarterly reports and have coffee ready in the conference room by 7:45. "Of course, Mr. Wellington." His eyes lingered on her face for a moment too long, searching for something. Then he turned and closed the door. The morning passed in a blur of meetings, phone calls, and endless emails. Emma threw herself into the work, grateful for the distraction. She was efficient and thorough, anticipating needs before James had to voice them. By noon, she had reorganized his calendar, streamlined 3 processes, and corrected an error in a contract that would have cost the company thousands. Ms. Rodriguez appeared at her desk with lunch. "You're doing well. Better than the last 5 assistants combined. The last 5. None of them lasted more than a month. Mr. Wellington can be difficult to work for." Emma glanced at the closed office door. "He seems fine to me." "That's because he's been avoiding you all morning." Ms. Rodriguez's tone was gentle but knowing. Whatever happened in that interview, it affected him deeply. Before Emma could respond, James's door opened. He looked directly at her, his expression unreadable. "Miss Carter, I need you to come with me." He led her to the parking garage, to a sleek black car that probably cost more than most houses. He opened the passenger door without a word, and Emma got in, her heart pounding with questions she didn't know how to ask. They drove in silence through the city streets, leaving the downtown core behind. The buildings grew smaller, the neighborhoods more residential. Emma recognized the area, a middle-class suburb on the east side. James pulled up in front of an old brick building. A public library, its facade weathered by decades of rain and sun. "Do you recognize this place?" he asked, his voice careful, controlled. Emma stared at the building. Something tugged at the edges of her memory, but it wouldn't come into focus. "I don't think so." James got out of the car. Emma followed him up the steps and through the heavy doors. The library smelled like old books and lemon polish. He walked with purpose through the stacks to a quiet corner near the back, where tall windows let in streams of dusty sunlight. He stopped, turned to face her. 17 years ago, he said, his voice low and rough. I was 15 years old. My father had just died. My mother was working 3 jobs, and we were about to lose our apartment. I came here every day after school because it was warm and quiet, and I could pretend my life wasn't falling apart. Emma felt something stir in her chest, a phantom ache she couldn't name. "There was a girl," James continued, his storm cloud eyes locked on hers. "She was 8 years old, and she would sit right there every afternoon, reading books that were too advanced for her age. She had this way of biting her lip when she was concentrating, and she wore her hair in 2 braids that were always coming undone." Emma's breath caught. Her hand moved unconsciously to her hair. "One day I was sitting here trying not to cry because I had just found out we were being evicted. She walked up to me and held out a book. 'This one has a happy ending,' she said. 'I thought you might need it.'" The memory exploded in Emma's mind like a dam breaking. The tall boy with sad eyes and worn-out shoes, the way he had looked at her like she had handed him something precious. They had spent weeks together in that corner of the library, her reading while he studied, sometimes talking, sometimes just existing in comfortable silence. "Jamie," she whispered. "You were Jamie." His face cracked open, raw emotion spilling through. "And you were Emmy, the little girl who saved my life without even knowing it." Emma's legs felt weak. She grabbed the back of a chair for support. "You disappeared. One day you just stopped coming. My mother got a better job in another state. We moved suddenly. I never got to say goodbye." His voice was thick with old pain. "I looked for you. For years I looked for you. But I only knew your first name and you were so young. I thought I'd never see you again." Emma's mind was reeling, trying to reconcile the boy from her childhood memories with the billionaire standing in front of her. "Why didn't you say something yesterday?" "Because I wasn't sure. Your face, it was like seeing a ghost. And then you said your full name, Emma Louise, the same initials you used to write in all your books, ELC, and I knew." He took a step closer. "I couldn't let you walk away again. Not when fate gave me this impossible second chance." Emma felt tears burning her eyes. "You gave me the job because of a childhood friendship? I gave you the job because you're clearly qualified, and because I owed you a debt I could never repay." His voice softened. "You gave me hope when I had none. You made me believe things could get better. And they did, Emmy. They got so much better. But I never forgot you." She wanted to process this, to understand what it meant. But before she could speak, his phone rang. He looked at the screen and his entire demeanor changed. His face went cold, closed off. "I have to take this," he said, stepping away. Emma watched him walk to the far end of the library, his voice low and tense. She caught fragments of the conversation. "I told you, I need more time. The merger can't happen yet. There are complications." A pause. "No, you don't understand. This changes everything." Another pause. "Longer this time." "Fine. But if this goes wrong, it's on you." He ended the call and stood there for a moment, his back to her, shoulders rigid with tension. When he turned around, the warmth from moments ago was gone. He was once again James Wellington, Billionaire CEO, wearing his armor. "We should get back to the office," he said, his tone professional and distant. As they walked to the car, Emma felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. She had found an answer to one mystery, but it had opened the door to a dozen new questions. And she couldn't shake the feeling that James Wellington was hiding something far more dangerous than a childhood connection. The betrayal 3. Weeks passed in a strange dance of proximity and distance. Emma worked harder than she had ever worked in her life, proving her worth 1,000 times over. James was professional, polite, and maddeningly careful never to reference their shared past. They existed in a bubble of efficiency and unspoken tension, 2 people pretending they were strangers. But sometimes Emma would catch him staring at her with that same raw expression from the library. And sometimes, late in the evening when the office was empty, he would say something that reminded her of Jamie, the boy who had shared his dreams with her in whispered conversations between bookshelves. The salary was everything she had hoped for, and more. With her first paycheck, Emma made a payment on Victoria's medical bills that actually made a dent. For the first time in months, she could breathe. Victoria's surgery was scheduled for 6 weeks away. Emma just had to keep going, keep working, keep pretending that working for James Wellington wasn't unraveling something deep inside her. Then came the morning that changed everything. Emma arrived early, as always. She was organizing James's schedule when she noticed a folder on his desk, partially hidden under other documents. The tab read, Meridian Merger, Confidential. She shouldn't have looked. She knew that. But something about the way James had been acting lately, the hushed phone calls, the meetings that appeared on his calendar with no details, set off alarm bells in her mind. She opened the folder. The documents inside detailed a merger between Wellington Industries and Meridian Corp., a pharmaceutical company. As Emma read through the terms, her blood went cold. Meridian Corp. Manufactured the drug Victoria needed, the one that cost thousands of dollars per dose. According to the merger documents, once the deal was complete, Wellington Industries would control Meridian's patents and pricing. The projected plans showed price increases of 300% within the first year. Emma's hands shook as she flipped through page after page. There were emails, financial projections, legal documents, and there, in James's own handwriting on a memo, accelerate timeline. Pricing restructure is essential for ROI. The office door opened. James walked in, coffee in hand, looking distracted. He froze when he saw Emma standing at his desk, the folder open in her hands. The color drained from his face. Emma, he said carefully, put that down. You're going to raise the price of the medication, she said, her voice hollow. The medication my sister needs to survive. You've known about her from the beginning. You've known everything. It's not that simple. Then explain it to me. Her voice cracked. Explain how you can do this. James closed the door, his jaw tight. The merger is necessary for the company. Meridian has been mismanaged for years. Without this acquisition, they'll go bankrupt, and no one will have access to those medications. So you're going to save them by making the drugs unaffordable, by pricing people like my sister out of life itself. The price increases are temporary. Once we stabilize production and expand manufacturing, costs will go down. Emma stared at him, searching for the boy she had known, the one who had understood what it meant to be desperate and afraid. How long is temporary? 6 months? A year? Victoria doesn't have that time, James. None of the patients do. His face was granite, but she saw something flicker in his eyes. Pain. Guilt. There are programs, assistance plans. We're not heartless. You're just practical, Emma said bitterly. You're just making good business decisions. Tell me, did you hire me because you actually cared? Or was it just convenient to have someone who wouldn't question your decisions? That's not fair. None of this is fair. She threw the folder on his desk, papers scattering. I thought you were different. I thought the boy who dreamed of making the world better had actually done it. But you're just another person who forgot what it's like to be powerless. James's control finally snapped. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know the pressure I'm under, the investors breathing down my neck, the board threatening to oust me if this merger doesn't go through. So you're going to let people die to save your company? I'm going to make the hard choices that keep this company alive so it can help millions of people in the long run. That's what leadership is, Emma. It's not about saving every single person. It's about the greater good. Emma felt something inside her break, sharp and irrevocable. My sister isn't a statistic. She's a person, and she's dying. I know, James said, and for a moment his armor cracked. God, Emma, do you think I don't know that? Do you think I haven't been trying to find a way to fix this? Have you? She challenged. Or have you just been trying to find a way to live with it? He had no answer. Emma took off her security badge and set it on his desk. I can't work for you. I can't be complicit in this. Emma, wait. His voice was desperate now, all pretense stripped away. Don't leave. Please, we can figure this out. There's nothing to figure out, she said, her voice breaking. You made your choice. You chose money over people, over me, over everything we could have been. What we could have been. James's voice rose. We're not children in a library anymore, Emma. This is the real world, and in the real world, you have to make impossible choices. Then make a different one, Emma pleaded. Be the person I thought you were. James looked at her for a long moment, and she saw the war raging behind his eyes. Then his expression hardened, and she knew she had lost. I can't, he said quietly. I'm sorry, but I can't. Emma grabbed her purse and walked to the door, She paused with her hand on the handle, not looking back. "The little girl in the library gave you a book with a happy ending," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I guess we don't get one." She left, the door closing behind her with a sound like finality. Emma made it to the elevator before the tears came. She jabbed at the button, desperate to escape before she completely fell apart. The elevator doors opened, and Ms. Rodriguez stepped out. She took one look at Emma's face and understood. "He told you about the merger," she said softly. Emma wiped at her tears. "You knew? I've worked for him for 10 years. I know everything." Ms. Rodriguez's eyes were sad. "For what it's worth, he's been destroying himself over this decision. I've never seen him so conflicted." "That doesn't change anything." "No," Ms. Rodriguez agreed. "But maybe you should know that he's not the villain you think he is. He's just a man trying to carry an impossible weight." "We're all carrying impossible weights," Emma said. "The difference is, he has the power to make it lighter for others, and he's choosing not to." She stepped into the elevator, watching Ms. Rodriguez's sympathetic face disappear as the doors closed. On the ride down, Emma's phone buzzed. A text from the hospital. "Victoria's condition has worsened. Please call immediately." Emma's world, already crumbling, shattered completely. The sacrifice Victoria was in the ICU, her face pale against white sheets, monitors beeping a rhythm that sounded like a countdown. She was awake, barely, her eyes finding Emma's face when she entered the room. "Hey, Em," Victoria whispered, her voice weak. "You look terrible." Emma laughed, but it came out as a sob. She took her sister's hand, careful of the IV lines. "You're one to talk. The doctors say I need the surgery sooner." "Like next week sooner?" Victoria's grip tightened. "But we don't have the money yet, do we?" Emma couldn't lie to her sister. They had always been honest with each other, even when the truth was unbearable. "No, we don't." "Then I guess that's it." Victoria's voice was too calm, too accepting. "I had 19 good years. That's more than some people get." "Don't." Emma's voice was fierce. "Don't you dare give up. I'll find a way. I always find a way." But even as she said the words, she knew they were empty. There was no time left for miracles. Emma sat in the hospital cafeteria at 2 a.m., staring at her cold coffee. She had called every resource, every charity, every possible source of help. The answer was always the same. "We're so sorry, but we don't have the funding." Her phone rang. James's name appeared on the screen. She almost didn't answer. But something made her press the button. "Emma." His voice was rough, exhausted. "Ms. Rodriguez told me about Victoria. I'm so sorry. Are you?" The bitterness in her voice surprised even her. "Or is she just another acceptable casualty?" Silence on the other end. Then, "Where are you?" "Why does it matter?" "Please, Emma, just tell me where you are." "St. Catherine's Hospital, ICU wing." "But James, if you came to give me some speech about hard choices and the greater good, I swear I'm not going to give you a speech," he interrupted. "Just stay there, please." He hung up. James arrived 45 minutes later, still in his suit from the office, his tie loosened and his hair disheveled like he had been running his hands through it. He found Emma in the waiting room, her eyes red-rimmed and hollow. He sat down next to her without a word, close enough that she could feel his warmth. They sat in silence for a long time. Finally, James spoke. "I've been thinking about what you said, about making a different choice." Emma didn't respond. "The merger is scheduled to close in 3 days," he continued. "If I pull out now, I lose everything. The board will force me out. The company I built from nothing will be taken from me. Every investor, every stakeholder who trusted me will lose millions. Then why are you here?" He turned to look at her, and she saw something raw and broken in his face. "Because 17 years ago, a little girl with 2 braids and a kind heart saved me when I didn't think I deserved saving. She gave me hope. She made me believe I could be someone better than the scared kid whose world was falling apart." Emma's throat tightened. "I became that someone," James said softly. "I built an empire. I made all the right moves, all the smart decisions, I became exactly the kind of person who makes impossible choices and justifies them with logic and numbers. He paused. But that little girl deserved better than what I've become. James, Emma whispered. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Richard? It's Wellington. Cancel the Meridian merger. Yes, I'm sure. And I want you to draw up documents for a personal loan to St. Catherine's Hospital, sufficient to cover all expenses for patient Victoria Carter's surgery and medication for the next 5 years. He listened to whatever the person on the other end was saying, his jaw tight. I don't care about the board's reaction. Just do it. He ended the call and looked at Emma. I'm not going to let your sister die. I'm not going to let anyone else become collateral damage for my ambition. Emma couldn't breathe. You just destroyed everything you built. No, James said quietly. I just saved the only thing that actually matters. Tears spilled down Emma's cheeks. Why would you do this? You'll lose the company. You'll lose everything. Not everything. He reached out and gently wiped a tear from her face, his touch careful, reverent. I might actually find my way back to the person I was meant to be. The person you believed I could be. The board will destroy you for this. Let them try. A sad smile crossed his face. I've survived worse. I survived losing you once. I can survive this. Emma felt something crack open inside her, all the walls she had built to protect herself crumbling. James, don't, he said softly. Don't say anything yet. Just let me do this one good thing. Let me be the person who deserves to be in your life again. The surgery took place 4 days later. Emma sat in the waiting room, and James sat beside her, their hands intertwined. He had dark circles under his eyes. The news outlets had been brutal, calling him reckless, unstable, irresponsible. The board had called an emergency meeting to discuss his removal. But he was here, steady and present, not checking his phone, not distracted by the empire burning down around him. When the doctor emerged with good news, Emma collapsed into James's arms, sobbing with relief. He held her like she was precious, like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. Thank you, she whispered against his chest. Thank you. Don't thank me for doing what I should have done from the beginning, he said, his voice rough with emotion. 1 week later, Emma stood in the hallway outside the boardroom at Wellington Industries. Through the glass, she could see James facing a panel of angry investors and board members. Ms. Rodriguez stood beside Emma, her face grave. They're voting to remove him, Ms. Rodriguez said quietly. The merger falling through cost them too much. They want blood. Emma watched James through the glass. He stood tall, his shoulders back, facing his execution with dignity. He knew this would happen, Emma said. He did, Ms. Rodriguez confirmed. And he did it anyway. For you, for your sister, for the person he used to be. Emma felt her heart shatter and rebuild itself at the same time. She turned to Ms. Rodriguez. Can I go in there? Technically, no. You're not an employee anymore. But, Ms. Rodriguez smiled sadly. But I've never been good at following rules when it comes to love. She opened the door. Emma walked into the boardroom, and every head turned. James's eyes widened in shock. Ms. Carter? One of the board members said coldly. This is a private meeting. I know, Emma said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. But I have something to say. She walked to James's side, and he looked at her with something close to wonder. James Wellington made a choice that cost this company money, Emma said, addressing the board. But he made that choice because he remembered what it means to be human. To value a life over a profit margin, to do the right thing even when it's hard. She paused, her eyes sweeping across the hostile faces. You can take his company, you can destroy his reputation, but you can't take away the fact that he's twice the person any of you are. This is highly inappropriate, another board member snapped. So is letting people die because it's more convenient for your bottom line. Emma shot back. She turned to James. I quit because I thought you had become someone I couldn't respect. I was wrong. You became someone worth dying for. James's eyes were wet. Emma. I don't have money or power or influence, Emma continued, her voice breaking. But I have something none of these people do. I have a reason to believe in you, and I always will. She took his hand in front of everyone, a declaration and a promise. The room erupted in chaos, but Emma didn't hear any of it. She only heard James whisper, "I don't deserve you." "Maybe not," she said, tears streaming down her face. "But you're getting me anyway." What remains the vote was unanimous. James Wellington was removed as CEO of Wellington Industries, effective immediately. He walked out of that boardroom with nothing but the clothes on his back and Emma's hand in his. The building he had created, the empire he had built from dust and dreams, was no longer his. Security escorted them both to the lobby, professional and cold, as if James hadn't given 10 years of his life to those walls. In the marble temple where Emma had first felt so out of place, they stood together as equals. Both of them stripped of titles, both of them free. "What now?" Emma asked as they stepped into the afternoon sunlight. James looked at her, really looked at her, and smiled. It was the first genuine smile she had seen on his face since they had reunited. "I have no idea. For the first time in 15 years, I have absolutely no plan." "That's terrifying. That's liberating." They walked to his car, which wouldn't be his much longer. The company would take everything. The penthouse, the assets, the carefully constructed life of luxury. James would be left with his personal savings, enough to live comfortably but not extravagantly. Enough to start over. Emma's phone rang. The hospital. Her heart seized with fear, but the nurse's voice was bright with good news. "Victoria is asking for you, and she wants to meet the man who saved her life." Victoria was sitting up in bed when they arrived, color returning to her cheeks. The monitors showed steady rhythms, the numbers finally moving in the right direction. She looked at James with curiosity and something that might have been awe. "So you're the billionaire who gave up everything for my sister," Victoria said, her voice stronger than it had been in months. "Former billionaire," James corrected with a slight smile. "And I didn't give it up for your sister. I gave it up for myself." Victoria studied him with Emma's same intelligent eyes. "Emma told me you knew each other as kids, that you were friends in a library." "The best friend I ever had," James said, glancing at Emma. "She used to tell me about you," Victoria said. "When we were little, before Mom died. She called you her library angel, said you made her believe in happy endings." She paused, a knowing smile crossing her face. "Guess you still do." Emma's throat tightened. She had forgotten she used to talk about Jamie to her little sister, weaving stories about the sad boy with kind eyes who read books about building better worlds. "Your sister saved my life long before I saved yours," James told Victoria. "I'm just evening the score." "Then I guess we're all even now," Victoria said. She looked between them, her expression turning serious. "But what happens next? Emma quit her job, you lost your company. How are you two going to survive?" James and Emma exchanged a glance, and something passed between them, an understanding that went beyond words. "We'll figure it out," Emma said, "together." 3 months later, Emma stood in a different kind of building. Not a towering glass monument to corporate power, but a modest 2-story structure in the same neighborhood where she and James had first met. The sign above the door read, "Carter Wellington Community Center." James had taken what remained of his personal fortune and invested it in something that mattered. A place where kids from struggling families could get tutoring, meals, healthcare referrals, and most importantly, hope. A library filled the second floor, warm and welcoming, with a corner near the window where 2 worn armchairs sat side by side. Emma ran the operations. James taught business classes to teenagers who dreamed of building their own empires someday. Ms. Rodriguez had quit Wellington Industries to join them, managing the finances and proving that loyalty ran deeper than paychecks. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't what anyone had expected, but it was real, and it was good, and it was theirs. On a Tuesday evening, after the center had closed and the last volunteers had gone home, Emma found James in their library corner, reading a battered copy of the same book she had given him 17 years ago. "Does it still have a happy ending?" she asked, settling into the chair beside him. "I'm not sure," James said, setting the book down. "I'm starting to think happy endings aren't a destination. They're a choice you make every day." Emma reached for his hand, their fingers intertwining with practiced ease. "And what choice are you making?" "The same one I've been making since the day you walked back into my life," he said, turning to face her fully. "Choosing you. Choosing this. Choosing to be the person I was always meant to be. Even though it cost you everything, it didn't cost me everything, Emma. It cost me things. Material things. Meaningless things." His eyes held hers, storm gray and infinite, but it gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. It gave me you. It gave me purpose. It gave me a second chance to get it right. Emma felt tears prick her eyes, but they were good tears, healing tears. "I love you, James Wellington. Not the billionaire, not the CEO, just you. The boy who sat in a library and dreamed of better worlds. The man who gave up an empire to save a life. The person who chooses to be good even when it's hard." "I love you too, Emmy," he whispered, using the name only she had ever been called by him. "I loved you when we were kids. I loved you when I thought I'd never find you again. And I'll love you every day for the rest of my life." He kissed her then, gentle and deep, a promise sealed with breath and touch, and the weight of two lives that had circled back to each other against impossible odds. 6 months later, Victoria walked into the community center, healthy and vibrant and ready to volunteer. She found Emma and James in their usual spot, planning the next fundraiser. They looked up when she entered, and the love between all three of them, chosen family forged in crisis and sacrifice, filled the space like light. "I got into college," Victoria announced, waving an acceptance letter. "Full scholarship, pre-med." Emma jumped up and embraced her sister, both of them crying and laughing. James stood back, watching them with a soft smile, the kind of expression that belonged to a man who had found his way home. Later, as the sun set and painted the library in shades of gold, Emma stood at the window, looking out at the neighborhood they were helping to rebuild. James came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked quietly. "Giving it all up?" "Every empire falls eventually," James murmured against her ear. "But love, real love that lasts forever." Emma turned in his arms, looking up at the man who had been a boy in a library, a billionaire in a tower, and now simply the person she loved most in the world. "Happy ending?" she asked. James smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his entire face. "Happy beginning." He kissed her as the last light faded, two people who had lost everything and found that what remained was more than enough. They had each other. They had purpose. They had the chance to make a difference in the world, not from a corporate tower, but from the ground up, one life at a time. In the corner of the library, on a shelf marked Favorites, sat the book Emma had given James all those years ago. Its pages were worn, its spine cracked from countless readings, but the story inside remained unchanged, a testament to the truth that had brought them full circle. Some endings are happy not because everything works out perfectly, but because the people in them choose to make them so. And James and Emma chose each other, every single day, for the rest of their lives. The end.